The beep 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 of the heart monitor was slow but steady. Each tone marked another second I remained tethered to this world. Another moment I hadn't yet become invisible. Except to my son. To him I might as well have been a mumbling old fossil, barely worth the effort. I heard it. Not once, but every time he thought I couldn't. Yeah, he's still breathing somehow, he had said the day before, chuckling into the lapel mic clipped to his jacket, part of some hospital fundraiser event he was hosting in the very wing I was confined to. What a trooper, let's just hope he remembers who I am today. The crowd laughed. I didn't. Because I remembered everything. My name is Leonard Brightman, I'm 76 years old. And 3 weeks ago, I walked into the hospital for what was supposed to be a minor cardiac procedure. They told me I'd be in and out in a few days. But now I wasn't even allowed to walk. Not because of my condition, but because of my son. The mockery didn't start in the hospital. Let me take you back for a moment. Before the beeping machines and the sterile walls. Before the microphones. Before my son learned how to speak with a smile but kill with words. I wasn't always a frail old man. I built Brightman Interiors, a now multi-million-dollar commercial architecture firm, from the ground up with nothing but graphite pencils and a drafting table in our garage. When my wife passed, I poured every remaining part of myself into that company. For him, my only child, Nathaniel, he was 11 when his mother died. I made a vow to protect him, raise him well, and give him the future she always dreamed of. And I did. Private school Ivy League. A junior role at the firm that fast-tracked to partner. He was talented, yes. But not like his mother. And certainly not like me. Still, I let him rise. Even when he brought in outside consultants who quietly nudged me into the background. They called it modernization. I called it erasure. The setup a trip that wasn't an accident. 3 weeks ago, Nathaniel insisted I go for a checkup. I'd been feeling chest tightness, nothing alarming. He arranged the transport himself. Even called the hospital ahead of time. When I got there, I was handed a form. I remember the clipboard, cold steel, the edge scraped my palm. He told me just sign it, Dad, routine consent for tests. I did. But it wasn't just consent. I found out later, after the second night when I wasn't permitted to leave my bed, he had slipped in an incapacitation clause. Effectively, he signed over control of my medical decisions to himself. The moment it all changed. The fundraiser was held 4 days ago. Some legacy of care campaign for the hospital expansion. Nathaniel was now on the hospital's board of directors. He was also the keynote speaker that evening. They moved me from room 814 to a private glass-walled suite for better observation, they said. I soon realized it was so I could watch him on stage. But more importantly, so he could see me. Or mock me. I watched from my bed, tubes taped to my arm, while he stood in front of the crowd wearing a fitted navy suit, a slick smile, and a wireless microphone like he was delivering a TED Talk. Behind him, a slideshow of photos cycled. Me holding him as a baby. Us on a fishing trip. A company ribbon cuttings. The crowd cooed. Then he shifted tone. My father built this company, this legacy, brick by brick, but like many legacies, it comes with complications. And recently we've had to face those complications head-on. Laughter again. Polite, but enough to make my nurse cringe and avert her eyes. He's been through a lot, but we keep reminding him, Dad, just blink twice if you remember who I am. The crowd roared. I didn't blink. Not once. The nurse who looked too long. That night, a young nurse named Clara came in to check my vitals. I asked her in a whisper, was the event recorded? She looked hesitant, then nodded. They live-streamed it, full recordings on the hospital's YouTube channel, but Mr. Brightman. I waited. She swallowed. They thought you couldn't understand, I'm sorry. Her eyes shimmered with something more than pity. Rage. What they didn't know. The next morning, Nathaniel walked in with a clipboard and a notary. Just routine, he said. Updating some directives. I asked him what they were. He smiled. Just formalities, Dad, you trust me, right? I nodded, but asked for my glasses. That was my cue. Because what he didn't know was that Clara had already brought me a printout of the video transcript. And what he didn't know was that one of the doctors had overheard him bragging about a future project involving turning my company's old flagship building into luxury condos. He said it loud, too loud. In the hallway, within range of another patient's speech therapy mic system. It recorded everything. What I had in my drawers. That night I pressed the nurse call button. Clara came in. I looked at her. I need a favor, legals. She gave me a slight nod. I pulled open the drawer of my side table. Inside was a thin silver voice recorder. I had used it before my surgery to journal thoughts for the company's memoir archive. But now it would serve a new purpose. I slid it into her hand. Get this to my attorney, tell him to check the timestamps. She hesitated, then nodded. They won't see it coming, she said softly. No, I whispered, they think I'm already gone. Cliffhanger ending for part 1. 2 days later, Nathaniel returned. This time with a hospital lawyer. He placed the final version of the directive on the bedside tray. Sign it, Dad, it's for your own good. I picked up the pen, paused, then smiled. Funny thing about microphones, son, I said slowly, watching his expression twist. They catch things even when you don't think they're on. He froze, and then the door opened behind him. My lawyer stepped in, Clara right behind him, and in his hand was a transcript folder marked Exhibit A, audio recording, Nathaniel Brightman, March 12. The fluorescent ceiling lights flickered slightly above me, cold and harsh. But I didn't flinch. Not anymore. Because the moment my lawyer walked in, flanked by Clara, holding that thick transcript binder, I knew everything was about to change. The pen my son had handed me just seconds ago rolled off the tray, clattered to the floor. He didn't bend down to pick it up. His fingers were frozen. So was his smirk. Gone was the self-assured grin he wore on stage. Gone was the politician in training, the legacy son, the curated face of Brightman Interiors, the next chapter. In that sterile room, all that remained was a man whose secrets had just stepped into the light. Sensory lid, texture of paper that burned. The legal folder my attorney held had a strange weight to it, not just in mass but in meaning. It wasn't thick with fluff. It was precise. Heavy like a final verdict. The corners of the transcript pages were slightly worn, as if truth had rubbed itself raw, waiting to be heard. My fingers traced the corner. Rough, real. As real as the words printed on the page, words my son never expected anyone to read. He cleared his throat, trying to recover. This is ridiculous, what is this? Some misunderstanding. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Clara turned, stepped to the side, and played the audio clip from the speech therapy mic. Once Dad's fully under, we rebrand the original HQ as a residential complex. We sell the legacy story, make it look like it's a tribute. Then we flip the lot for condo investors. Easy win. And your dad signed off on it. Laughter. He wills one way or another's. The sound echoed through the walls. Even the machines seemed to pause for a beat. My son had just been caught plotting to exploit my signature while I lay sedated. Not a word about families. Not a word about heritage. Just conversion plans and market flips. A lawyer with teeth. My lawyer Harold Stern, a man with silver hair and eyes sharp as scalpels, turned calmly toward Nathaniel. Mr. Brightman, you are aware that recording was obtained with legal consent via medical equipment, correct? Nathaniel scoffed. This is a joke, that's not even my voice, you're just. But Clara held up her hospital tablet. It's already been matched through internal security logs, time-stamped, voice print matched, confirmed by 2 separate admins. Harold didn't flinch. Additionally, we've obtained a copy of the incapacitation form. The signature provided your father's was forged. The pen you used, it's under analysis. Ink match doesn't align with the hospital supply pens. And he turned a page. There's a security video from the East Hall showing you entering your father's room the night before alone while he was under sedation, with a clipboard. Nathaniel turned pale. You set me up, he muttered toward me, voice low. I didn't have to say a word. I simply adjusted the bed incline and stared at him. The way he looked at me, it wasn't the gaze of a remorseful son. It was the look of a man who had lost his illusion of control. He opened his mouth as if to protest again. But Harold cut him off. You are hereby served notice. Effective immediately, your power of attorney is suspended, pending investigation. Then Harold leaned down toward me. We've also filed a formal complaint to the hospital board. They'll be meeting within 48 hours. Nathaniel stepped back as if burned. I saw his eyes flick toward Clara, full of disbelief. She didn't blink. The office he couldn't keep. 2 days later, the boardroom at Brightman Interiors was cold with tension. I sat at the far end, not in person but via secure live stream. They had offered to send a car, I refused. Let my image flicker on the 90-inch screen behind them, an old man in a hospital gown with resolve in his voice. That would be more unsettling. Because I wasn't dead. And they needed to remember that. Across the polished mahogany table, Nathaniel sat straight-backed, adjusting his tie like it could hide the betrayal stuck to his skin. I built your digital department, he told the board. I modernized the firm. We're 40% more profitable year over year since I took the lead. One of the senior partners, Allison Cho, spoke without even looking up from her tablet. And what about the flagship building? Did you have plans to rezone without board consent? Nathaniel paused. That was a hypothetical. She looked up now. We don't run on hypotheticals, Mr. Brightman. We run on contracts and ethics. The twist that hurt him most. Harold stood again. In accordance with Leonard Brightman's revised directives, prepared during his fully conscious and verified legal window, we're enacting Clause B-17 of the Legacy Charter. Gasps echoed. B-17 was an old clause. Almost forgotten. It allowed the founder, me, to override leadership decisions in times of malpractice, including immediate removal of acting leadership, nullification of property deals not approved by legacy oversight, freezing of accounts tied to compromised transactions. Nathaniel Brightman is hereby suspended from all operational roles pending external audit. He thought he knew the system. Nathaniel stood quickly, face flushed. You're all being manipulated by an old man clinging to relevance. I leaned forward on the screen. Son, I said, voice cold. You mocked me with a microphone. You thought the world was laughing with you. I paused, watching him sink. But what you forgot is that I invented the stage you're standing on. A face in the crowd. As the boardroom dissolved into murmurs, one final figure entered the stream, unexpectedly. Maria Vasquez, the firm's longest-running accountant and my late wife's goddaughter. She held up a slim envelope. This is a letter Mr. Leonard entrusted me with 5 years ago, to be opened only if Nathaniel ever attempted to sell the company's legacy property. The board chair waved for her to proceed. She opened it. Inside, a notarized document signed and dated with my clear instructions. If my son ever seeks to erase our history for profit, stop him. Our walls are more than brick and steel. They are my wife's memory and my promise. Leonard Brightman's cliffhanger ending for part 2. Nathaniel stormed out of the room. But not before muttering, this isn't over, you'll see. Back in the hospital, I set down the tablet. Clara stepped in moments later. He's calling in reinforcements, she said quietly. His wife's father is an attorney, and they're threatening countersuit. I smiled slightly. Let them come. Because what no one knew yet was that I hadn't even played the real tape. The one that didn't just expose Nathaniel's betrayal, but revealed the deal he made with someone inside the hospital. And it would all come out. At the next board hearing, the nurse wheeled in my breakfast tray just as the sun broke across the tiled floor. But I wasn't hungry. Not that morning's. Because somewhere 3 floors below, Nathaniel was packing the hospital's East Wing conference room, prepping for damage control. The board was split. The inheritance clause had frozen his power. The audit team was inbound. But Nathaniel wasn't done fighting. He thought he could still bluff. Still spin. Still win. What he didn't know was, he wasn't the only snake in the room. Sensory lid smell burnt coffee and bleach. The hallway outside my door reeked of cheap hospital coffee, burnt, bitter, overboiled. A nurse had spilled a tray near the elevators, and the cleaning crew had doused the floor in industrial-grade bleach. The mix of aromas hit me like a chemical slap. Stale ambition, I thought. Just like my son's. Everything around me suddenly felt synthetic. Whitewashed, disinfected to hide the rot. And yet beneath it all I could still smell the truth. The call that shifted the war. Harold, my attorney, returned with a new wrinkle on his brow. "We got a ping," he said quietly, pulling up his phone. He turned it toward me. A voicemail left anonymously at the firm's general line. The voice, distorted slightly but unmistakably female. "Nathaniel's not working alone. Check the grant files under Wellness Expansion Phase 2. It's in the hospital's internal server. He's diverting patient care funds into shell contracts, one signed by Dr. Sloan." Dr. Sloan, Chief of Internal Medicine, and Nathaniel's golf buddy. Clara took the bait. I gave Clara a task. "I need you to pull files quietly." She hesitated. "That could get me fired." I looked at her. "And how much longer do you think someone like Sloan will let you keep your job once Nathaniel's lawsuit rolls out?" She didn't need more convincing. By afternoon, she returned. Eyes wide. "You were right. What we found. 3 contracts. All signed under the Wellness Expansion budget. Each one routed through dummy LLCs registered out of state. Vague services like environmental design, narrative therapy consultants, and legacy visualization planning. All suspiciously priced at $99,850, just under the hospital's reporting threshold of $100K. All paid out within the last 6 months. Clara scrolled through her findings. The consultant on 2 of these, it's a woman named Verity Cole. I nearly choked. Nathaniel's wife's cousin, she's a freelance branding designer, never set foot in a hospital in her life. The fire begins to catch. Harold wasted no time. He submitted a full whistleblower packet to the State Medical Oversight Board, including the audio confession, Clara's document screenshots, voice verification analysis, shell company registry logs. By the end of the day, a formal investigation was launched. Dr. Sloan was placed under administrative leave. Nathaniel, he was summoned. But he didn't come alone. He brought his father-in-law, a smug, pinstriped attorney named William Cole. The battle in the conference room. I wasn't there in person. But I watched through the live feed again, this time from a sharper angle. The room was quiet as Harold laid out the evidence. William Cole leaned forward, his voice calm but cutting. "This is character assassination. These recordings are inadmissible. My client has been misrepresented and manipulated by emotionally motivated staff." Harold raised one eyebrow. "We have not one, but 3 separate data sources confirming financial misconduct, plus a chain of custody maintained by hospital security." Cole smirked. "And yet you have no proof that my client initiated the transactions. Dr. Sloan, currently unavailable, I hear, is the one whose name is on the grants." A witness steps forward. That's when Clara stepped in. Uninvited. Unafraid. "Excuse me, I have a statement." Harold motioned for the board to hear her. She placed a printed transcript on the table. "On March 5th at 4:17 p.m. I overheard Mr. Nathaniel Brightman telling Dr. Sloan, and I quote, 'Just sign it. They won't audit small invoices. My wife will write up the project names.'" Cole's smile faltered. Nathaniel stared at her. Like he didn't recognize the woman who had once fetched him coffee. Twist the hidden transcript. Then I played my final cards. Literally. From under my pillow, I slid out a sealed envelope addressed to the board chair. Clara delivered it. Inside was a printed transcript, one even Harold hadn't seen yet. A conversation I had recorded a week before my surgery. Nathaniel had come to visit that day. He was kinder, softer. He told me he loved me. But after he thought I had dozed off, his phone rang. He answered it near my side. And said, "Yeah, he's finally going under. After this, we can push the rebrand. Dad won't even know we're moving the legacy lot until it's gone. Call Verity, get the LLC prepped. We'll route the invoice through Sloane's department. His phone mic had picked it all up. My recorder had caught the phones. The fallout. Silence. The kind of silence that comes before consequence. Harold stood up slowly. Mr. Brightman Jr., you are now implicated in medical fraud, corporate embezzlement, and unlawful misuse of medical directives. William Cole stood too. We'll file an injunction. But the board chair raised her hand. You'll do no such thing. Effective immediately, Nathaniel Brightman is barred from entering company premises and hospital properties associated with the investigation. We'll be submitting everything to the district attorney. Nathaniel turned to the screen where I watched from bed. You set me up. I stared back at him. No, son, you set yourself up the moment you thought no one was listening. Cliffhanger ending for part 3. Later that night, Clara returned to my room. She handed me a letter. No name, just L written on the front. Inside, you don't know me, but I know you. I was the other patient in the speech therapy ward when Nathaniel joked about the rebrand. My recorder caught more than just his voice. I'm ready to testify, let me know when. Clara raised an eyebrow. You planning on taking this all the way to court? I smiled, feeling my heartbeat sink to the steady beep of the monitor. No, I said. I'm taking it to the press first. Because if there's one thing Nathaniel feared more than jail, that was shame. And I was about to turn his microphone into a spotlight. The hospital television flickered softly in the corner. Muted, but not silent. Across every major news channel, my son's face had become a symbol of betrayal. He once stood on stages, commanding rooms with charm and polish. Now he was flanked by blurred mugshots, bold red headlines, and looping audio clips of his most damning words. And I didn't have to say a single thing. The microphone he once used to mock me. Now the world was listening. And they weren't laughing. Sensory lead light flashbulbs through glass. It started with a flicker. Then another. By mid-morning, the front of the hospital was lit up like a premiere night at a film festival. Camera flashes bouncing off the glass doors, reporters crowding the entryway, microphones pointed at anyone in scrubs. From my room, I could see the chaos through the reinforced windows. The light hit the hallway in rhythmic pulses. Bright, white, judgmental. One flash every second. Like a countdown. Tick, tick, tick. Nathaniel had nowhere to run. Public exposure, the press leak. Harold had been reluctant at first. Media adds chaos to the process. It could compromise the court case. But I disagreed. He didn't ruin me in court, I said. He did it in public, in front of crowds, on a microphone, so let's return the favor. Within 48 hours, a leak hit every outlet. Son of renowned architect accused of fraud, exploiting father's incapacitation. It included audio from the fundraiser, legal filings of the inheritance freeze, shell company breakdowns, a scanned letter in my wife's handwriting, outlining her wish to preserve the flagship building. But the real bombshell, the headline video, Nathaniel on stage laughing, saying, "Just blink if you remember who I am, Dad." Then the crowd's laughter. Then my blank stare from behind the glass. It went viral within 3 hours. Nathaniel's world begins to crumble. The backlash was immediate. Sponsors pulled out from the Wellness Expansion Fund. The hospital announced a board re-election. And Brightman Interior's Instagram, once filled with modern redesigns and ribbon cuttings, was flooded with comments like, "This is how you treat the man who built your fortune. Elder abuse isn't branding, it's criminal. Cancel Brightman." But worse, clients pulled out. Big ones. Multi-year contracts, city partnerships, and international firms began sending termination notices. I watched it unfold from bed. And I didn't flinch. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about memory. About preserving what mattered. The secret ally. 3 days into the media storm, I got a visitor. Not Harold. Not Clara. Verity. Nathaniel's wife's cousin. The woman listed as the branding consultant for the fake hospital invoices. She entered quietly. No makeup. No PR smile. Just eyes rimmed red, holding a USB drive in her hand. He made me sign, said it was part of the wellness grant. I waited. But then he told me to shred the backup invoices. That's when I knew. She looked up. Do you want proof he knew what he was doing? I nodded once. She handed me the USB. Every email, every edit, every invoice dated tracked. A deeper betrayal. But Verity wasn't done. She sat down beside my bed. You should know something else. Nathaniel didn't just lie to you or the board or the press. She took a breath. He lied to Olivia too. My brow furrowed. His wife. She nodded. She didn't know about the property flip. She thought the company would stay in the family. She thought she was helping him secure your legacy, not erase it. I said nothing. Because the moment she handed me that USB, I realized. Nathaniel's own wife was now my greatest weapon. Olivia joins the fire. The next day, Olivia appeared on camera. Flanked by her own lawyers. Eyes swollen but voice steady. I was misled by my husband. I did not consent to any misuse of my father-in-law's legacy. I have voluntarily turned over all correspondence, financial records, and personal communications related to the Brightman Holdings Trust. I support full investigation, and I am filing for separation effective immediately. That clip played on loop for 48 hours. One anchor said, when your own spouse flips on you publicly, it's game over. Revenge deepens property roots. What Olivia did next caught even me off guard. Through her attorney, she filed a property lien against the shared estate, citing misuse of trust assets for personal gain. Turns out Nathaniel had used her name to secure a loan against their beach house, without telling her, then funneled the money into speculative land deals tied to the wellness expansion. Now, the bank froze his accounts. Their house was placed under legal review. His personal credit collapsed. And in a poetic twist, he couldn't afford his own defense team anymore. He came back to me. It was late evening. The hallway was quiet. Clara had just dimmed the lights when she froze. He's here. Nathaniel stood in the doorway. No entourage. No microphones. Just him. Disheveled. Sunken eyes. Wrinkled suit. Dad, he said softly. Please, can we talk? I gestured for Clara to leave. She did. He said. Didn't look me in the eyes. I made mistakes, but I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I watched him struggle. They're all against me now, the press, the board, Olivia. Then his voice cracked. Are you? Cliffhanger ending for part 4. I let the silence hang. Let him twist. Then I said, you came here for mercy, didn't you? He nodded, eyes glassy. I leaned in. Then tomorrow come to court, not for me, for yourself, and tell the judge everything. He blinked. And if I do? I stared at him, then reached into the side drawer and placed the USB Verity gave me on the tray between us. Then I'll play the other files, the ones that show you weren't just lying to me. You were laundering your future. The courtroom wasn't large. No sweeping balconies. No mahogany walls. Just off-white panels, soft halogen lights, and a faint hum from the ceiling vent. But in that small, quiet space, my son's world collapsed. Sensory lid, physical sensation, the tremble in my fingers. My fingers twitched slightly as I adjusted the lap blanket on my lap. Even now, with the tremors from age and surgery, I refused assistance. Every move I made that morning in court was my own. The wooden armrests beneath me were polished smooth, but I could still feel the faintest grain, the quiet scars of use. That texture grounded me. And when I raised my hand to swear my testimony, it didn't shake. The courtroom gathers. Olivia sat to the left. Verity 2 rows behind her. Clara had taken a personal day and was allowed to attend as a private citizen. Even Harold, ever composed, tapped his pen slowly. I could tell he felt it too. This wasn't just a civil dispute anymore. The DA had picked up the case. Nathaniel stood across from me. Alone, his father-in-law's legal team had withdrawn the week prior after the lien on the beach house revealed multiple unauthorized loan activities. He wore a navy suit, the same one he wore when he mocked me on stage. But now it hung looser on him. He hadn't tailored it since losing 12 pounds under the weight of truth. The courtroom clerk called the session to order. Legal twist testimony reveal. The judge called the case. The court officers read off the charges. Forgery of medical documents. Misuse of power of attorney. Fraudulent reappropriation of medical funds. Wire fraud tied to property schemes. But the final charge. It is echoed. Elder abuse with intent to profit. Nathaniel didn't flinch. Not until Harold stood up and said, "Your Honor, the prosecution calls Leonard Brightman to the stand." I take the stand. I was wheeled up, but I insisted on standing once I reached the rail. I turned slowly. Faced the room. Faced him. "Do you recall the defendant mocking you during a hospital fundraiser?" Harold asked. I nodded. He joked about my memory, my health, my mind. He turned my decline into a punchline. "And how did that affect you?" I took a breath. He thought I didn't hear, but I did. I heard everything. And in that moment, I realized something awful. My own son didn't see me as a father anymore, just an obstacle. Murmurs rippled behind me. The flash drive that ended it. Harold placed a small USB on the presentation table. "Your Honor, we submit Exhibit 7 emails, invoices, and internal communication between the defendant, Dr. Sloan, and Verity Cole, all confirming coordination of fraudulent wellness grants and plans to use rebranded property flips for personal gain." The judge reviewed the files silently. One by ones. Each one a nail. Nathaniel's defense attorney, appointed by the court, tried to object. But it was hollow. Even Olivia turned away when the video played. The final clip. Nathaniel's own voice. "Don't worry, by the time Dad realizes what we did, the ink will be dry, if he's even still around." The verdict. The judge didn't need long. He set the file down. Removed his glasses. "Mr. Brightman Jr., this court finds you guilty on multiple counts, including fraud, forgery, and willful exploitation of a dependent adult." Nathaniel closed his eyes. "Sentencing will be delivered in 30 days. Bail is denied." The bailiff stepped forward. My son, my only son, was cuffed. He looked at me. One last time. But I didn't look away. I didn't blink. Final revenge route, inheritance flip. A week later, Harold delivered the final legal update. "The Brightman Interiors Trust has been rewritten." I raised an eyebrow. He smiled. "You now hold majority stake again, and you've appointed Clara as chief of legacy operations." I chuckled. She deserves it. But that wasn't all. I'd also filed a motion to turn the flagship property into a nonprofit architectural school, under my wife's name. Olivia supported it fully. She even donated the first $50,000, taken directly from the reclaimed joint account she now controlled. The very building Nathaniel tried to erase would now carry the name of the woman who raised him. One last conversation. Weeks later, I visited Nathaniel. Not for closure. Not for pity. Just clarity. He looked smaller in that visiting room. Thin. Quiet. He said nothing. So I did. "You always thought I was clinging to power, but I was." I leaned closer. "I was clinging to you until you let go first." Epilogue. The microphone returned. On the day I cut the ribbon at the new design school, a young reporter handed me a lapel microphone. "Mr. Brightman, ready for your interview." I smiled. "You know, I've been mocked with one of these before." She laughed, unsure. I pinned it on. Face the crowd. "I once built buildings, now I build legacies, and sometimes you have to tear down what's broken to raise something worthy in its place." The crowd applauded. And somewhere I hoped my son heard it. Not the words, but the silence after. Because this time no one was laughing.